Welcome to the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast, your place for truckside chats and insights into the retriever game. Whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned handler, this podcast is another resource for tips, tricks, and insights from both the amateurs and professional trainers' perspectives. Each week, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of retriever training, sharing stories of success, overcoming challenges, and forging stronger bonds with our dogs. This is the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. I'm Chris Rud, your host, fellow retriever enthusiast, and student of the game. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. Today I'm joined by good old Clark Kennington, going to be probably one of the more reoccurring guests on the podcast. Been a long day, but how you doing?
Good. Got several naps in today, waiting to run. Yeah, doing good.
Yeah. Last time we did this, I felt like you were going to pass out. So,
well, yeah, I had 20 dogs running a master test, and you wanted me to come do a podcast at the end of the day. I wasn't exactly feeling it.
Today was a little easier, though.
Much easier.
How many dogs did you run today?
Seven.
Seven's a lot easier when you get to go to sleep.
Yeah, much better. Much better.
Well, what's new?
Just trying to get ready for the Master National. This is the last SRS for us for a while. We start getting ready for the Master National. We got 45 going to the Master National.
Dang, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So you're done qualifying dogs?
Oh, yeah. We've got them all qualified. We do have a master test at our place. Week and a half, I think. They all run together now. And we've got another master test 1st of September. We'll run one more SRS probably. Then National, Grand, Crown, the real grind begins. Yeah. And then a break. And
then a baby.
Yeah.
Wait, what did you do? I can't remember. Was it Robert?
Robbie. Little Robbie's on the way.
Yeah, Nicole's pretty excited.
Super excited.
Is she doing anything that you're like, that's interesting?
She's craving all kinds of crazy stuff. She went from tacos, which I could get on board with. I was good with the tacos. And then we went to sandwiches and Subway, and I couldn't get on board with that.
Have you had to do any runs yet, or is she pretty self-sufficient?
Hush, we're not going to talk about that.
Well, she ain't going to, will she listen to this podcast?
Yeah. We're not going to talk about doing any running.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember any, I think one time I had to go and run and get something for Caleb, but I don't remember what it was. It wasn't that eventful, but it was one of those moments where I was like, I'm going to go do this no matter how long it takes me to do it.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to make sure I was keeping her happy. Well, if you guys listening hear a little bit of background noise, we are at the Jim Manson SRS. We just finished day 2 here at Abbey Farms, and we're actually doing the podcast with the judges eating dinner. I think they're cooking some salmon over there. And so if you hear some background noise, that's what it is. They got to get fed. They did a good job today.
They did 2 very long days for them.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say though, this is by no fault of the judges, but this has been a pretty weird kind of. I don't know. I feel like it's been a little bit of a weird SRS just because yesterday
the first series, you look at it and you thought it was going to be way harder than what it was, and then we had just a certain wind that just. Any other wind would have made that test much more difficult. We just happened to get the wind that made it easier. We had a lot of low scores. But they dropped the hammer on us today. They made up for it.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, this is a really nice quad. I was like, that long bird should be nice and difficult. I thought those 2 retired birds that were the mid-distance birds were going to be tough, but they got them. The dogs just did it. I mean, I think the top 12 amateurs were within 16 points.
Yeah, it was tight.
It was crazy tight. And then today in the evening, I mean, the test was very challenging, really challenging test. It was a quad, but you only picked up 3 birds. You ran 1 poison bird, backsiding the long gun and running just off of the short gun. And dogs are doing it pretty good at the beginning. We had a pretty standard failure rate, or every once in a while a dog would mess it up, but we rebirded, and then looked like all the amateurs that were in the top 6 just exploded. We had 3 double handle or 4 double handles. It was interesting.
For whatever reason, I felt like the test was more doable early. Like the first dog I ran, it was his first SRS. He did a great job on the marks. Now, he did not jump the pipe, and I knew before we started he wasn't going to jump the pipe. He's never seen anything like that. And then Daisy did a great job on it, and then I was like, oh, this isn't that bad. And then I came up with my next dog, and it was bad. It was really bad. But the way this game's gotten now, and you and I were this yesterday, it's almost like running an all-age stake. All the dogs are so good.
Yeah.
And it depends on which one hits that weekend. Just because the dog gets a high score doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad dog. It just didn't have a good day.
No.
Like Daisy got a high score yesterday. She won last weekend. But I've been working on pushing past a standout gun to a long retired, and I sent her hard on that long bird, and she did exactly what I've been working on all week. She went all the way to tree line. I can't be mad at her. You know, she's doing exactly what I've been working on. And then she put up my lowest score in the second series, but it just wasn't enough to get to the 12.
The top 12, yeah.
But she's one of the best dogs I've ever stood by. It just didn't happen. So in this test today, there was a lot going on in a tight, confined space. A lot. You had to have a dog that really knew where it had already been, and if they weren't good at that, they better really be able to point and shoot.
Yeah.
Like the last dog I ran in that series, Maze, he never saw the long bird to the left at all, but he stepped on it. But he's a really good point and shoot dog. You know, you can talk him into going wherever you want him to go, and that's where he's going to go.
Yep.
But if you didn't have that, it could be a struggle on that test.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those games that you just keep trying to play. I mean, I thought, because I made the top 12, but I barely did, and I felt like after I ran because I was the first dog that all of a sudden all the amateurs like really started struggling, and I wasn't actually that upset because what the things that I had been working on throughout that week was the things that Winter did a really good job on.
Yep.
And I was like, I mean, she just missed 2 marks, and that's all you can. There wasn't anything, you know, like she just missed them. That just happens, you know. Mm-hmm. But she stopped quick. She took handles really quick, and I think I made the right strategic move based on what happened to a few other AMs that ran after me that really let the dogs hunt. Yep. Not to get into the test too much, but there was 2 short birds, and one of them, the dog, they threw it, but then they picked it up while the dog was coming back from the blind. So dogs that had never seen that before, and Winter's one of those because I never even knew that they would do this, which is kind of the whole point of the SRS, is that they picked that bird up, and you had to run past that bird to the long bird. And Winter, you know, I sent her, and she knew right where that other bird was. The one that's not there no more.
Did that.
And I was really happy because I whistled. She sat. She looked at me really good. She gave me one really good cast almost all the way to the bird. And you just needed one more cast to finish that up. And then she got hung up between the 2 left-hand birds right in the middle of between them. And that was the one whistle cast. So I feel like if I wasn't for that fact that she didn't give me any cast refusals, didn't give me any sort of,
you wouldn't be in.
I wouldn't be in, but right. I made it in by the skin of my chin, and I was pretty surprised, but it is what it is.
That marking scenario, and you and I were discussing this just a little while ago.
Yeah.
One of the things in the SRS is we can talk to our dogs while the birds are going out. So a lot of getting those marks has to do with communication between you and that dog. And we were talking about that. When that first bird came out, I was communicating with my dogs, watch. When that long bird came out to the right, I was way out. Same thing on the long bird to the left. When that poison bird came out, I didn't say a thing to him, not a word. Because the way I like to train is when I do throw multiples, I'm communicating each bird to that dog.
You're identifying it with each
I'm identifying it. So after I ran that blind, I come back to get that left bird. If they look back at that, I'd say no. And I push over and say, watch right there. And I'm trying to make them remember what happened. Then when I go to get the long right bird, I'm communicating way out. Because I'm wanting them to remember exactly what they saw and what they heard at the same time. Yep. It takes a lot of time doing that repetitively to get them to understand that. But I feel like that helps a lot when you're trying to pick up marks in that situation and not getting them to go back to that poison bird that was picked up, just by communicating with them a little more.
Yeah, definitely something I'm gonna test a little bit more. I mean, I think even though I've never seen it before, it showed me something that okay, I can go build that in as something that I practice a little bit more. Is just saying, hey, I know that I know you think there's a bird right there, but I'm telling you to go get the long bird. So that's the bird that you're going to go get.
So, and that's one of the fun things about the SRS. There's always something that you can work on. Like you're going to find something at each event. You're like, man, never thought about working on that.
Yep.
I need to work on that. So just when you think you're getting this game whipped, they're going to throw something at you that's just going to make your head spin, and you're going to go, crap, now how do I work on that? But that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy them, and it's getting to the point where I'm kind of just like, whatever happens, happens. I mean,
yeah.
You can't get bent out of shape about anything in this game. I mean,
and if you don't do well in a weekend, I was having a discussion with somebody today about this. Like, you have to have confidence that dog is there. Like, it's in there. It's capable of playing this game. It just didn't happen this weekend.
Yeah.
You just got to keep on getting at it. At some point in time, that dog's going to put it all together and be the dog it can be at some point in time on the weekend when it needs to.
Yep.
It just may not happen this weekend. May not happen next weekend. It may take a year, but just keep having faith and confidence and keep working on it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, you got a new course coming out. I'm not sure when this podcast is releasing, so it might be before or after, but I think it'd be good to kind of talk about that a little bit. So it'll be on the Hunt Test Guide.
Yes. We filmed a 3-day seminar that South Florida did while I was down there this winter. This was the second seminar I'd done for them. The first one was more of a kind of intermediate, how to work on cold transition from pattern blinds to cold blinds, and just basic stuff on transitioning into advanced work. The second one was more advanced work. We really focused on where to place birds and why, what to expect out of the dogs. How do we handle it when they fail? Like, how do we help them become better? We talked a lot about when to give pressure and when not to give pressure. And that's a big thing. Like, some of the stuff that sticks out to me that's going to be in this course or this seminar that we're going to have available was at the end of day one, after we'd done so much work and we talked about trying to make sure that when we gave corrections that it was justified and it was black and white, to make sure that we were very clear to the dogs what we wanted, so we don't have any residual effects to them. Mm-hmm. And this goes back to one of our first podcasts talking about dogs' mental stability. We threw singles, a set of singles in the middle bird. I said, look, if your dog is remotely uncomfortable, you'll never get it. And we didn't have a single dog get it in the seminar. And it was all because they were stressed. Mm-hmm. And we talked about what caused it. How do we balance that to where we can make dogs that are comfortable to go to get that bird? So I think that was a big takeaway. Day 2, we did a lot of water work. We talked about watermarks and how to properly teach them. And we talked about what we should expect out of our dogs. Mm-hmm. Talking about what our standards should be. How our standards can only be equal to what the dog's understanding is. So the mistake so many people make is the dog's understanding level's here, but our standard, we're trying to play up here, but its understanding's down here. And then what happens? The dog starts to crumble. So we talked about how do we raise that bar. As the dog's understanding increases, now we got to increase our standard. We can't just come out with this high standard. Our standard has to raise equally with the dog's understanding. And if it doesn't happen that way, we're going to break them down and we're never going to reach that dog's full potential.
Yeah.
And we talked about attitude a lot, especially with the water. And there was one dog in particular that had a master hunter title, a hunt and retriever champion. And it went to cheat this piece of water. And we just did some recalls and casting. And the reasoning behind that was the dog's attitude was really sour. So, and we went into deep discussion about that. We have to read the dogs and what they're telling us. Pressure is not always the right answer. We can get a lot out of recalls and casting and teaching, especially if the dog's already telling us that their attitude's sour. So we need to build that back up, more so than reaching for the transmitter. And we covered a lot of that kind of stuff, and about trusting your training in the dog, how to pick up multiples. And when they come back and they stare at that gun, so many people are going, oh, I need to kick them over to the bird. Well, if you trust your dog and the training you put in them, my dog comes back, stares at that gun. Go get him, Fido. Mm-hmm. I believe you. I believe you know where you're going. And a lot of the times we can over communicate to them what we want. We got to trust them. So we went into a deep conversation with that about handling, how to help the dog more handling. And the difference between training and testing, because there is a difference. There's just a lot of stuff covered in that 3 days. And I think it's like 100+ videos. Jeez. It's a lot of footage. But I mean, it's the whole 3 days. I mean, it may take you a long time to watch it, but when you have it, it's there forever. So you can always go back and revisit it.
Yeah.
And it's not just me teaching. I mean, we have 10, 15 handler dog teams that they're running their dogs, and I'm coaching them through what's happening.
Yeah.
And as their dog does something wrong, then we go into explaining why the dog did what it did wrong. Well, how are we going to correct it? How are we going to get that dog's mindset thinking differently than what it did before? So I'm super excited for it. I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it. I mean, I haven't seen it yet. I'm really excited to watch it all because I feel like, and I'm really excited for others because I think I spent like 2 or 3 days with you in Texas and just sat there and watched you run dog after dog after dog. And every dog was a little different.
Yep.
And you made different decisions. And I got to ask you why. And I know from seeing you at other seminars is that you're going to explain every single dog situation and break that down after each run or before or during. And so you'll find something maybe that your dog struggles with. If you watch that seminar, you're going to see different times because I'm sure that you see the same dogs through each day.
Yes, we run every dog every day.
Yeah, you're going to see so much different things that dogs need to be worked on and handlers need to be coached on. That could be super helpful for folks.
And you get to see it firsthand. Yeah. I mean, get to see the dog and the handler's reaction as it's happening. And that was one of the reasons why we really focused on making sure we could get that seminar filmed. Being able to see me run a dog and what I'm doing is completely different than watching an amateur that does not have a lot of experience running their own dog.
Yeah.
Because it's not, in my opinion, teaching somebody how to train a dog isn't just, well, the dog did this, you do this. Well, they're not learning anything at that point in time. They have to know why the dog did what it did and why we're doing what we're doing and what we're trying to get out of it. Otherwise, we're not getting anywhere. Training a dog, any dog, is not a cookie cutter thing. It's not. I wish it was, but it's not. So we dove really deep into the psychology of dogs and what we're trying to get out of them and how do we get the most out of them when we're training.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what was some of the common themes that you saw with the dogs that might be good to talk about because that's something that maybe other people who are listening might struggle with?
When to handle dogs on a mark and when not to.
You know what? Let's back up. What level of dog you said is this?
This was more finished dogs, transitioning between, finished to master. We actually had a dog that was running quals there. That was more the level of dogs that were at that event. We did have a couple of younger ones that were like seasoned transitioning to finished. So that's the level of dogs you're going to see within this seminar. But I wouldn't say there was 2 dogs there. One of my clients was running that they hadn't been with me for a while, that are both grand champion master hunters. And you'll get to see them make some mistakes. Yeah. You realize that dogs are dogs. It doesn't matter what initials they have next to their name. They're still a dog. They're still going to make mistakes. They're still going to need training. So you get to see all that as well.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so now let's set that question back up again. What are some common things that you'll see?
When to handle a dog on a mark and when not to when you're training. And what are you trying to achieve when you do? That was a misunderstanding that I saw a lot. And how to set up marks and what is our boundaries of what we're going to handle on and what we're not. And that goes back to your standards. If you have certain standards, you expect that dog to achieve that mark within, you're going to set boundaries that you're looking for that dog to do en route to that bird. And how do we handle that? How do we teach them how to do that? When to give pressure and when not to give pressure was a big thing. So many people think that the end all be all fix is grab the transmitter, hit the button. And it's just, we're all that wired that way when we first start. I was guilty of it. I'm not denying. I mean, I was hard on dogs when I was younger, but as I've grown up and I've learned more and become more knowledgeable, the more I learn, the less I use it. But it's just a common thing, you know, people just don't know. And then when you really start showing them what you can really teach the dogs to do and getting them to think for themselves, and, you know, the reward for them is doing it correctly. You start to see a lot more high attitude and willingness to work. And now you got that dog that you throw that big bird past a short gun. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get it. So that's the big things I saw within the seminar.
Is that, I know that there's another course or two that's going to be launching as well.
Yeah, Lyle's got one coming out. I'm excited about that one. I don't know really what's on it. I was at the kennel, and I've had so many people ask me, and my thing was when I'm filming, it's just me and the film crew. When Lyle films, it's just Lyle and the film crew. I don't want any influence from me on what Lyle's giving you, and vice versa. I want you to have the 100% honest me and the 100% honest Lyle. Because I feel like that's what you guys deserve with it. He did a pattern which just builds off the 3-leg that I did in my first one. He did swim by. He did some water pattern blinds, working on changing on directions after the swim by. And he did his poison bird drill that a lot of people have wanted to see, is all in that course that he finished out.
Yeah, I've seen that drill done quite a few times at the kennel.
It's a unique drill, and it really helps dogs. It teaches a lot of dogs how to be comfortable when they're put in uncomfortable situations, if you work on it a lot. And that's the big thing with me with that drill. It's from the get-go, you make them uncomfortable when you start it, because you're asking them to do something that you never ask them to do. So
when I first saw that, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen right away.
So it kind of, as you do it, you're helping dogs learn how to navigate those obstacles and not just become a bundle of nerves within it, if you do it correctly. So I'm excited for people to see that. We're going to have a way to bundle all of that together. We've been discussing that. So if you guys want to get how to build a confident blind running dog on what I had, the first 3-leg pattern blind, the 4-phase, which is helping dogs learn how to run a blind in conjunction with marks and teach poison birds. That course, my seminar, and then Lyle's 5-leg, swim by, water patterns, and poison bird blind. We're going to bundle all that together to where there's an option where you can get all of that, which is, I think it's like 150 to 180 videos of just a lot of knowledge.
A lot of good stuff.
To where we'll sell it cheaper with all that bundled together, which I think is going to be awesome. I mean, it's going to be so much knowledge right there. Then we've got a lot more stuff yet to come, and I'm excited about it. One of the things that I said in that seminar, and they used it on the promo, is hopefully within a couple of years, once we've got enough information on this, shouldn't be any excuse for you not being able to obtain the knowledge you need to properly train a dog. Because we're going to put it out there for you. We're not going to hide anything. We're going to give you 100% of what we know, and not just what we know, but what people we respect in the business know as well. So we're going to give it all to you, and we're looking forward to seeing a lot of successful people from it.
Yep, absolutely. So we had a pretty good time today. So you took a nice nap, but
I took a couple of good naps.
Man, I was in the same boat, man. I was like
tired.
I've been in the process of selling my house, so it's been like every night getting home from work, working on stuff, and man, my wife has just been cleaning, and it was good. We got a few offers today, so pretty excited that it wasn't all for naught. But
it was worth it.
My point was, man, I loved today because I slept, but I remember like I kept walking by your truck, and you were just like, you were out.
Oh, man. This time change for me, the drive over here that was supposed to be 9 hours, it turned into 11 and a half because of traffic in Indianapolis and Cincinnati. And then start time was at 7, so I had to be up at 4 to get a shower and get all the dogs there, which is 3 my time.
Yep.
Oh, man, it's kicked my butt.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. I had to get up at like 3:30 because I didn't make it here because I left Chicago and I drove, and it was...
Don't talk about Chicago.
It took me an hour and a half to get out of Chicago, and it should take me like 35 minutes.
I believe it.
And I realized I'm not making it through Cincinnati tonight, so I got a hotel because of all this podcast gear. I couldn't hobo it.
Couldn't sleep in the bed of the truck.
There was no room for me, and so then I had to get up at like 2:30. To make it the rest of the way. That was plus the time change. So I was just exhausted. But my whole point to that was The thing that kept me going this week was that we were going to get some beef ribs.
Oh man, they're so good. There's a plate of them over there. I keep eyeballing.
Well, it's kind of the leftovers. It's pretty fatty. I was looking at it, but I have to admit, like, beef ribs are the way. So if you guys have never had beef ribs, you should fly to Austin or San Antonio and go get some really good beef ribs.
They can't be better than what you made.
I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to. I mean, it's just Texas ribs, you know.
It's so good. Just salt and pepper on them. But gosh dang, they're so good.
It's all about the meat. And here's another tip: if you want to try some beef ribs, go to the Mexican restaurant because they cut them up as little short ribs, and you show them a picture if you can't talk to them. Show them a picture of a big plate that they come out with them, but it's like $50, $45 a plate. But I
feel like that's pretty cheap though.
Well, I mean, but it's not that much meat.
It's really good.
It's really good.
It's like getting Wagyu with bones attached to it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit today about expectations. And do you think it's important to have expectations for your dog, to have goals for your dog when you first buy one? Like, what's your kind of...
Yeah, I do. I feel like any journey with a dog, I always tell clients that bring us our dogs, I ask them, what are their goals? Like, what do you want to obtain? Well, if they say, I want a grand champion master hunter. All right, well, we have to always begin with the end in mind. And everything between point A and point B, we have to have that end goal in mind because we want to set them up for success to reach it. Never do we want to do anything between point A and Z that's going to hinder us from getting to our destination, which is Z. So I do believe you have to have goals. But I feel like you have to have realistic time frames. Mm-hmm. Like you can't go into it and say, I want to have this by this time. I want to have this by this time. Because not every dog's the same. You may have a dog that could be one of the greatest dogs ever walked the planet by the time it's 6, but you have unrealistic goals for it to do before it's 3, and it'll never be that dog. So I feel like it's important to have those goals, but be realistic in what you're looking at getting, having the dog do. Because you can push too hard too fast and never obtain what you want to obtain that you could have if you've just been patient. I always bring up Toombs. Toombs is a prime example of it. Man, I was pushing hard last year. Hard. I was pushing hard early this year. And let's just sit back and relax and, let him do what he does. And it's been game changing. Yeah. And he's been a completely different animal. Kelly's running him. It's his first SRS he's ever run. All he's ever run is some started season and finished test. And he's in first place going into the semifinals. Never run one before in his life. Yep. And this test today required some handler, getting involved. Yesterday, it was just so you could go get the marks, and my advice was stay the hell out of his way. And he did, and he did really good. Today, he had to get more involved. And I called him after he had left with his kids.
If we were talking about this.
I called him after he left with his kids because he didn't know how to end it up. And I said, hey, you're leading it. Going into the final, he said, you got to be kidding me. I said, you know how much further ahead you'd be if you'd not tried to send him to the wrong bird? So the bird that they picked up is a poison bird. Kelly actually sent Toombs to that bird after he ran the blind. And Toombs being Toombs, he's an extremely intelligent animal. He went in there and looked and said, it's not here, and bailed Kelly completely out, turned and left and went and got the right bird. No other dog did that today.
No.
Not one. And then he got the other 2 birds good, and he had to jump this pipe. And I told him, I said, if he comes back and stares a hole at the pipe, leave him alone and just send him.
Yeah.
Well, before he ever went and got the last mark, he came in, he had the long left bird left to get. Toombs turned and looked at the pipe.
Yep.
I knew then the game was over. He was going to line the blind. He had to pull him off the pipe to go get the mark.
Yep.
But he's in the lead despite his mistake.
Yeah.
And he said, you didn't have to say that. I said, I want to make sure these lessons stick in. Like, you're going to make mistakes. And the only way you're going to get better is to make sure that you realize what those mistakes are so you don't do them again. Mm-hmm. And man, I'm super proud of those 2. I could not be any more proud. And I hope they can continue doing it tomorrow and see how the chips fall.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the expectations, you have 2 different young dogs that are with 2 different people.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about, I think, on the podcast why that is, but you're a client in that scenario.
Correct.
And I've heard you talk about Tinder.
Yep.
And so I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about like what, because I mean, I'm assuming that a lot of the listeners here have dogs with pros.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah.
So how can they be good clients?
So I've got Tinder with Caleb Brown. I wanted her to run derbies. I don't have time. Lewis runs some, but not a lot. So we have so many hunt test dogs that it's hard for us to really devote the time to that. I mean, we had a young dog named Radar that ran derbies this year. And she got a couple placements. I mean, did a great job. Super nice dog. But we just don't have the time to devote to just that. So I sent her to Caleb, which I trust a lot. We've had several dogs come from Caleb, and they're all super nice. I don't really talk to Caleb that much. Get a bill, I pay it. I'll call him every now and then. Hey, how's she doing?
Yeah.
The biggest thing as far as picking pros and being a good client is you need to do your due diligence as a client before you ever send the dog to somebody. Like, make sure you've really researched who they are, what they stand for. Do they do a good job with the dogs? And the big thing is to go watch them. How do the dogs react to the handler, the trainer? That tells me a lot. I trust Caleb. You know, I'll call him and say, how's she doing? And, well, we're doing this, 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 and this. Cool. Okay. Appreciate it. Now, unfortunately, in this business, there's people that don't do what it needs to be done sometimes. So you need to go see your dog when you can. I'm just blessed to be in a situation where I see a lot of dogs from a lot of different people, and I know who I can and can't send dogs to. And you have Fang, doing a great job with Fang. And the situation with Fang is, again, I don't have time. I just don't. I have 24, HRCH Master Hunter SRS dogs that take up all of my time. And I was having a discussion with another pro here today, Dale, about how do you be successful in the SRS? He's got 30 dogs. He's training from the ground up all the way through his master dogs. And this game has gotten to a point now to where it's so competitive, it's almost impossible to run in the open and still do all of that. It's almost impossible. You've got to dedicate yourself to advanced dog work completely. You can't go spend 6 hours a day building young dogs and be able to compete with the dogs that are here in the open.
Yeah. It's
almost impossible. And that was a discussion we had today about it. And that's kind of the boat I'm in now. So I make sure that, I have people I trust like yourself and Caleb that I can send a dog to. And I've told Caleb from the get-go, hey, if this dog, you don't feel like it can make the derby list, don't feel like you're going to hurt my feelings, bud.
Yeah. That's a big
I'll come get her. Like, it's not going to hurt my feelings. I promise. I would rather you tell me up front. But even if he says he feels like she'll make the derby list, if she doesn't, but she gets a couple placements, hey, we gave a good go at it. And she definitely had the talent. It just didn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you need to go into it.
Yeah.
Begin with the end in mind and be patient.
Yeah. Another thing that I'll add to this is every dog I've trained, even though I've trained 90% of what they've done, I've always sent them to either Dan or Tyler because we do the exact same program, exact same everything.
Right.
But I think it's really important for dogs when they're younger be handled by many different people and that standard be the same.
Correct.
Because you never know what that dog's career is going to be. You never know where that dog is going to be. There's going to be times where you can't run a dog. It'd be nice to have somebody else be able to do it. And you don't want that dog that's a one man. I can't remember what that's called, but they don't want to run for anybody else.
Lyle calls them one man dogs.
One man, there it is. That's what I was trying to.
I'll give you an example. Hatch, man, we miss him. Hatch was, if you looked up the definition butthole in the dictionary, it should have had a picture of Hatch beside it. Man, he would run amazing for Lyle. Put an HRCH title on him. We were going to run him in the Grand before he passed away. I can remember a couple times I called Lyle. I was like, man, this dog is violating me. Like, I'd try to go to the line. He'd just leave me and go on up there. And then we'd get ready to leave the test. As soon as I turned around, he'd just leave and go to the woods and start peeing on the bush. Oh, man. But Lyle ran him. He didn't do any of that. He was a one-man type animal. And I told Lyle, I said, if I run him in the grand, me and him are going to have some serious discussions about going to the line and leaving the line. Not too worried about doing the work, but just that little piece with him. He was like, oh, I'm done. Screw you. We're going back to truck. He was something else. When I think about a one-man dog, he pops in my head because he would violate me. I mean, absolutely violate me and enjoy it. But he's no longer with us, but that's the one I think about when I think one-man dog. I think about Hatch.
Yeah.
He was definitely that. Or Stroker was kind of like that. He won a SRS amateur with somebody running him one time. But other than that, I tried to let Kelly run him one time in a finish test. And if you ever watch me run Stroker, he was the most docile creature. He'd just walk up to the line, he'd sit and he'd just turn his head. He was calm as could be. I look over there and Stroker is climbing over the holding blind. And Kelly's trying to yank him down. He's like 8, 9 years old, man.
Yeah.
But if anybody else tried to run him, he was like, hold my beer and watch this. He would violate you in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So I do think it's important to every once in a while let somebody else run their dog. Mm-hmm. Be super fair.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to give the correction that's needed that they know that they understand. I think that is something. Was there anything else that you feel like would be pretty good for the listeners?
I know we've got the Master Nationals and the Grands coming up. For the listeners that are preparing for that, the biggest advice I can give you is don't overthink it or overdo it. A lot of the big mistakes that I see people make building into those events is they let their mental stress carry over into their training and into their dog. We are
That's
2
a good
months,
reminder.
little bit, 2 months or so away from the Grand. Like, we should be preparing for the Grand today.
Now you got me nervous.
Today, not 3 weeks before. Today.
Yeah.
So if we know we have a little issue with our dog going to the line or sitting still, well, Monday we need to be working on that right now. Because what happens is we crunch. We're creatures of habit. We start crunching right before that. And then we create all this mental stress on the dog. Or we could have simply just worked into it and gradually make that what we want to where we don't get that right before the event. So that'd be something I want to make sure everybody thinks about. Like, start tomorrow. Like, we're going to start training for these events. And don't let your mental stress building into it carry over into your training. Because we're bad about that as humans and trainers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Clark, it's late, man. I'm tired.
Me too.
I'm gonna wrap this
Those
one up.
naps made me tired.
Yeah. Well, I'm still trying to recover from that one night driving. But we'll see how tomorrow goes. Hopefully I can make up tremendous amount of ground. And
sure.
You
got this.
Yeah, sure.
You got this.
And who you still got who are the top?
I still have Maze and Jet in.
I don't know anything about Jet. Is Jet kind of new or?
Jet. Lyle normally runs Jet.
Okay.
He's a Clooney pup. He's a litter mate to Jimmy. I got second in a qual with him in January. Super nice dog. We're just trying to move some dogs around. Lyle went to an SRS a midweek in Minnesota after the one that we took all 6 places. I came here so Kelly could run Tombs, so I gave him 2 of the dogs I normally run because the field was a little easier for him to get placements up there. So I took 2 of his stronger dogs here. So we just swapped a couple out. Like I took Breck and Jet, and he took Sully and Thor. So that's how I ended up with Jet.
How did Thor and Sully do?
Sully made it to the semifinals. He's only 3 years old. They had a super tight poison bird, and that was a little much for little Sully.
Yeah.
Thor made it to the finals, was leading it going into the finals, and Thor broke in the finals.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Sorry.
So then Lyle called him back and completed the test, and he would have won had he not broke.
Oh, man. What bird did he break on? Did he break on the go bird, or did he?
They threw a quad, and then you had to know off of it and run a remote sim blind. And when Lyle was putting the gun down, he broke.
Oh.
So, that's one of the things you can't actually DQ for in the final of an SRS. So it just is a heartbreaking thing.
How many points did he need?
He needed 4 with Lyle. I've got 2 with him.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. But had he won, he would have got us 4.
He would have got what he needed.
But that's one of the things Lyle and I do a lot. Like, we try to figure out there's some dogs that do better if I train them and he runs them, and vice versa. And that may be one of those dogs. Like, Thor has done so much really well. He just hasn't had that weekend. Like, at Habitat Flats, he didn't make the top 12. He didn't handle on a mark. He ran some really good blinds. He just didn't find didn't find the birds quick enough to make the 12. And that's happened a couple of times. Like, he wouldn't handle on a mark. He just didn't quite do it good enough. It's like running the Open. I got all the marks in the first series, but I didn't get called back. It just wasn't quite good enough. So he did really well until he didn't in the final. So yeah, that's how that turned out. Yeah. Thanks for putting salt in the wound.
Sorry, man. I wasn't trying to. I was just curious.
Sure.
I'm sure the listeners were curious too how it went. Because you said you got all top 4 placements or top 6 placements, so I was thinking there you go.
In Minnesota, we took all
that was
6.
a different SRS.
The different one. That was the first one. I had 4 of them. Lyle had 2, and I think Lyle had 4 of the top 6 in the second Minnesota one. Now I've got 2 left playing in here, so hopefully I can get them to the final.
Yeah. But, well, we'll see how tomorrow goes. Hope it goes well. So thank you to the Hunt Test Guide for supporting this podcast. Without them doing this, without their support, this would not be happening today.
We're happy to be on board with them.
This gear would be out of my budget a little bit. So
we're glad we could help.
Yeah. So thank you to the Hunt Test Guide. And check it out. Check out these new courses that are coming out here real soon, as well as the team membership, which I thoroughly enjoy getting
it's
on
a
there.
lot of fun. I really enjoy the Q&As. There's a pile of knowledge. I mean, everything we've done for almost 2 years now, it's all there.
Yep.
So you can go back from day one and watch all those setups, all those Q&As. There's a ton of knowledge in there. I'd venture to say, I bet it's well over 600 videos.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally 2 years of your guys'
database
of your training now.
Training, and it's a lot. And that's what we're trying to do is we want to give as much possible knowledge as we can. It's a lot of setups. We're in the process of trying to figure this out, how we can structure it to make it work, but we're going to be offering one-on-one consultations with people that are members of the Hunt Test Guide. Give you an hour of our time and trying to help you as we can with that. It'll have to be scheduled, of course, because we're swamped running dogs, but it's something else we wanted to offer to members of it. Yeah. So that's coming soon as well.
Very good. Well, thank you, Clark. Appreciate it. And I'll see you in the morning.